and begin our topic. As you see, this headline is contradictory because we are speaking about a revolution, but it is ongoing. And we used to think about revolutions that they are one time and then we are going to evolution. But somehow the evolution of Hebrew, which I try to explain and tell more about it, is a special phenomenon which didn't end yet, but continue to change rapidly in many, many aspects, and it will go further, even further. So now let's see if this is working. Not yet. Okay, so what is Hebrew? Hebrew is a language that is based, or its history is shown as, described as in geology or archaeology terms. We are speaking about layers of the language, 4 layers, which I explain shortly. And the important thing and surprising thing is that these layers are not covering one another, but they stay in the front of the language. They don't disappear like in geology, when one layer cover the other, or in archaeology. But today we not only know and are acquainted to the old layers, but we also use them. And more and more, these layers combine together to what we call modern Hebrew, which is in a way the 4th layer. These layers are going 3,000 years ago to ancient time, and of course more than 3,000, because we only have text that tells the story or tells about Hebrew for the last 3,000 years. But of course people spoke Hebrew before biblical time. Not so much. We believe maybe 3,000 years and 200-300 more years, and we don't know exactly how it began, how it gave birth. It's part of the Semitic big family of languages that was born in the south of the Saudi Arabia or the Arabian Peninsula, and spread in the whole region where Israel is now, and also to Africa. And today we have about 5 or 6 languages that still are living from that huge heritage, but dozens of languages, some we know, some we didn't know, disappeared, were spoken some 1,000 years ago. Now the first layer is, of course, biblical Hebrew. What is biblical Hebrew? It's the language the Bible was written and preserved and brought through the years by tradition. We have one book. What we see here is called the Gezer Table. The Gezer Table is a bit earlier to the Bible, and it's almost the only documented item that shows us what happened before biblical time. But this is Hebrew, not in Hebrew today's letters, but in Phoenician, Canaanite letters. And it tells us it's a table of the year months, the year seasons. But the Bible was written for a long 800 years. some very religious people, what we call fundamentalists, believe that the Bible was written in one day, maybe by God. Well, science doesn't agree with this, unfortunately. It was written for many, many years by many, many groups, intellectuals. It was edited through the years, and we're speaking about 800 years of writing the Bible. Now, the Bible is one book. It's large, but not so large. And it's still the basis of our language today. And it includes 8,000 words, not more, which might seem small, and it is very small. There is a dispute of how many words are in English, but speaking about 800,000 of words maybe, so Bible has 1% of words. So it's a very small portion or sum of words, but we see more about it in the when we continue, because we go to the second layer. Now, what happened is that the Bible was written and reflects a spoken language of Judea. Judea is the middle of Israel, where Jerusalem was the center, the capital, and it was not so big, of course. Judea, you know, there was Judea and Israel, two kingdoms combined together and sometimes separated. Judean was in the middle, and they were in the hierarchy, they were more important. Of course, the temple was in Judea, and they wrote the Bible in the Judean dialect, and in the Bible, the word Ivrit, Hebrew, is not a biblical word. You cannot learn about Hebrew in the sense we speak today from the Bible. In the Bible, we speak 4 times about the Judean language. People who know Judean, the language of the Jew. What is the language of the Jews today? Yiddish. What does it mean, Yiddish? The Jewish language. Of course, it's another language, but it's the same name. Now, when the temple, the second temple was destroyed, the second, Judea was destroyed, the Judean people were repatriated, went to the exile. There was another dialect in Israel, not written, not known, and not have no step in the Bible. It was Hebrew. Many things are similar, but it's a different Hebrew. In the Galilee, mainly, in the north. Now, no Judean, so the Galilee language became the language of the whole country, the language of the intellectuals, the language of the rabbis, of everybody. And after, as there was no Judean spoken, and the Judean people began to speak Aramaic in Babylon and in Israel, there was still 400 years of Hebrew creativity, Hebrew texts written in Israel, written, spoken, and this is the basis of what we call the Mishnah. Mishnah. The Mishnah is have 6, I believe you know, 6 parts, Sdarim, 6 volumes, and it's written in this special way. Now we have biblical language and Leshon Chachamim, the language of the wise, it's called, because they were called the wise people, our wise ancestors. So, and later the Talmud, which is based on Hebrew plus Aramaic, was a continuation of the Mishnaic language, so we call it Talmudic Hebrew, or in Hebrew, as I said, Leshon Chachamim. For 1,000 years, this was the language, and, as I say, Hebrew with Aramaic, more and more Aramaic. After the end of the Jewish settling in Israel, Israel stopped to be a living language in the sense we know now, that everybody speaks Hebrew, that the life of the public is managed in Hebrew. It disappeared. And the language became, as I said, Aramaic. But the Talmudic language preserved this creation by the Talmud, the Jerusalem Talmud, the Babylon Talmud, through more hundreds, more centuries, the Midrashim, the Agadah, the Piyut, which are a very special kind of poetry in Hebrew in the 6th century. So there was a lot of text written in Hebrew and spoken in synagogues, spoken in schools, but not in everyday life, not in the public arena, only in the religious arena. Now, layer 3 is a medieval Hebrew, which begins in, we begin to count it from the 8th century, with the Geonim, the genius people. We call it now genius, but they were the leaders, the Jewish leaders in Israel and especially in Babylonia, and later in a very important era, the Golden Era in Spain, where they were part of the Arabic big culture of Spain. And it continues with the responsa, if you know what it is, the responsa texts. The texts were written by rabbis, asked questions by the public, what to do in every aspect of life, and they answered questions. And this is a huge literature called responsa literature, and it's also part of this medieval language. So we speak about medieval language until today, even until today, as the language of the religious aspect of life. So Hebrew never died. Hebrew lived, but it lived in the religious arena, and it lives mostly between men, not between women. The women didn't speak Hebrew. They was not part of the rituals. They have no, their duty was to raise the family, as we know, and children didn't hear Hebrew at home, only at schools. And then we are coming close to what we call this revolution, modern Hebrew. And modern Hebrew, and I of course do it a little bit schematic because we cannot go into nuances. But this is really, we have a date when it began, which is amazing. Think about a moment that things happened. This moment was a moment when a young Jewish Zionist, Haskalah, Enlightenment oriented, left his religious life. When he was 15, he wanted to be an Narodnik. He wanted to be a Russian nationalist. But when he wrote, there was something in Judaism that still grabbed me. This was language. I was in love with the Hebrew language. And Hebrew language brought him to Zionism. That's what he wrote later. And he decided a very unique decision. He's not only a Zionist, he's going to live in Israel, which most of the Zionist leaders didn't do. They lived in Europe. And he wrote, 21 years old, he wrote a historical article published in one of the Jewish newspapers or periodical called A Very Important, Respectful Question. And the question is, what are we doing with ourselves as Jewish? And he, of course, pointed Zionism as the answer. And there is one sentence there saying, and we also have a language. We have a language. The language is the ancient language of the Bible. And we are going to revive it. Now it sounds a cliche, even a cliche. But nobody believes it is possible. The leader of Zionism, Herzl, who wrote this famous book, The State of the Jews, have 1 or 2 paragraphs about language. He thought about everything. But when he came to language, he writes, we don't have a language. Hebrew, that's what he said to his friend, Hebrew is not an option because we cannot buy a ticket for a train in Hebrew. Gave this example. We cannot use it for everyday life. So what can we do? He said, Jewish know many, many languages. They will come to Israel and everybody will speak his own language and the powerful language will win and this is the language we'll speak in. I believe, of course, that he liked the idea that in Israel people will speak German because that's what his, not only his own language, but the language of the culture around. But if his vision would succeed, I believe in Israel people would speak Yiddish because most of the Aliyah, the people who make Aliyah, who came to in the first Aliyah, including Ben Yehuda, in the late 80s, 90s, spoke Yiddish from home. And it was a part of their identity. And he didn't, he met once he met Ben Yehuda, who wanted to meet him. And after this meeting, he said in his diary, today I met some redhead small Jew from the East. He didn't even say Palestine or Israel. And he has some strange ideas. That's what he wrote. And Ben Yehuda wrote in his diary, after this meeting I understand why nobody can stand Herzl. So they saw it very on the personal level, but these two people are maybe 2 of the 4 or 5 big leaders of Zionism. After Ben Yehuda, there are streets, towns, etc. And Ben Yehuda wrote this paragraph, and then he understood what we call today that Hebrew is his niche. He loved Hebrew, but he was not a linguist. He didn't study it. But he understood that this is his mission. This is his thing. And he began to raise interest in it. He established the Vaad HaLashon, the Committee of Language. Maybe some of you met Bar Asher. I was told that Moshe Bar Asher, who is now the president of the Hebrew Academy of Language, which was founded in '53 as in continuation with the Committee of Language, and which was founded in 1892. Before 125 years. So by Ben Yehuda and his friends, of course, there was a group. The people he found most close to his ideas were the Sephardi who lived in Israel and spoke Hebrew between themselves, and they was fond of his ideas and helped him. Why most of the Ashkenazi, not speaking about the ultra-Orthodox, rejected it. most of them, and the ultra-Orthodox saw Ben Yehuda as a big enemy of Judaism, because he are going to take this secular religious language, with the language of God, and make it everyday language. People will speak about everything in this sacred language. Until today, his tomb is corrupted from time to time by ultra-Orthodox, and they see him still as a big enemy, the extreme part of them at least. And he didn't succeed immediately. Still, it was an idea spread more and more accepted, but you could hear Hebrew in Israel in the 19th century. Almost not. There were newspapers, including Ben Yehuda newspaper. But what happened that in the beginning of the 20th century, the second Aliyah grabbed the idea of Hebrew and make it happen. How did it make it happen? The main way was through children. Children who are, even if they came as children or born in Israel, the first Sabras, Hebrew was their language. And this went until, it's going until today. You know, Israel, from the beginning of the new, the Aliyot, is an immigration society. And we have waves of immigrations, more and more coming. The last one, as a Russian, million Russian came to Israel in the 90s. Unbelievable. Thousands, dozens of thousands from Ethiopia. Now the French are coming, etc. So, and it's again and again, the immigrants, the parents continue to speak their own language. Not all of them, part of them at least, while the children adopt Hebrew immediately. I grew in a German Jew family. How does they call in Hebrew? Who knows? The Yekes. And I heard German at home. I didn't hear Hebrew at home. It's unbelievable. And my father, who died young, unfortunately, and he was a poet in Germany and a writer, he never studied, never learned Hebrew. And when I wanted to hear Hebrew, if I needed to hear Hebrew, I have to go out of my house, go in the street, and go to the shop, and then I heard Yiddish, because all the neighbors spoke Yiddish. So that was a reality, but it's one generation reality. The second generation speak Hebrew because that's how they speak with the other fellow children in school, in the kindergarten, and of course, we need one, also for practical reasons, we need one language for all the Jews, so that succeeded rapidly, and the revolution succeeded, you could say. As I said, all this could happen. People say it's a miracle. Maybe I don't believe in miracles. I would like to, but it is part of history. You know, today there are dozens of languages, of ancient languages, who their users want to preserve and make the same, bring the same success as Hebrew. The Celtic languages, Australian languages, Spanish languages, etc. But history and politics does not allow it. So the success is partial and very small. While here we have historical conditions, because Hebrew is part of the Zionist project, and it was needed to this project. And as Zionism succeeded as the national movement of the Jews, Hebrew became part of it, and this is the main reason why it succeeded, but it's not enough. How was it done? We are speaking, what I said is written now in some, so we skip it. I just have to say that today modern Hebrew is a fourth layer, which is still growing and living. But some years ago, in the 50s, there was a new term we use today, and this is the most accurate term to understand what's happening. We call it Israeli Hebrew. Israeli Hebrew means that in Israel we speak Hebrew, but it's not exactly the language of our ancestor, of classical Hebrew, but it is growing and changing, and we see a little bit how it changed. And it changed in many directions, and we have to understand how it changed, and of course, change is the name of the game. If you want to survive, you have to change all the time, also in language. So, how did it happen? Let's go to, first of all, it happened in many aspects of language, but the most understood and close to our heart and mind are words, vocabulary, the dictionary. Now we have to create a modern language, Hebrew, with 8,000 words from the Bible, 8,000 words from the Talmud, 600 more words from medieval era, together about 25,000 words. Now, how can you raise a modern language with such a few amount of words, such a small dictionary? How can it happen? And if you speak not about miracle, but it's something that is really outstanding, is this phenomenon, that you take such a small vocabulary language and make it fit to modern life. How can we do it? First of all, and this is also an amazing statistics, there are 8,000 words in the Bible. But in everyday life of Israeli, speaking small talk, speaking in the street, cursing each other in the roads, as you know, we are very good in it, managing public life, speaking about our feelings, teaching in the university, write newspapers, etc., etc., 65% of the words we use are these 8,000 words from the Bible. So in vocabulary, it's the basis of New Hebrew. You can ask, how can this happen? First of all, we know we don't need for our so many words, you know. Languages are large, but most what we need for life is not so large. And the Bible is a story, is a book about life. It's not about abstract things. It tells stories about people. And we know we can look at those people who lived there, and we read the stories. They were like us. They didn't have iPhones or internet, but also me as a child didn't know what an internet is, and even not what a television is. Of course, they didn't know what a car and an airplane is. They didn't know many, many things we know today. But there were people like us. They have the same body. They have the same family system and almost not democracy, but the same public or political system. And they have human feelings. The important things were absolutely the same, like us. And they have words for all of these aspects of life. Let's begin with body, the body. The body is the beginning of language because it's us. So we have in biblical Hebrew a name for the nose, the eyes, the ears, the head, the legs, the face, and even for inner parts, which they knew maybe more from the animals that they slaughtered. For example, kidneys. Kidney is a very important organ in the Bible because it's a place of morality. You know, God is the one who examines kidneys and heart. Heart is the feelings. Kidneys are, we are told that about somebody who his kidneys torture him after he did something bad. So they knew what kidneys are, and and all the parts are known in the Bible, most of them, and we use them today. So you see, if some of you can read Hebrew, this is in Hebrew, mikaf regel ve'ad rosh, which means from foot to head. And in the Bible it says, mikaf regel ve'ad rosh, he is wounded. There's nothing whole in his body, but this is the whole context. But this tells us that mikaf regel ve'ad rosh, from the foot to the head, all the organs are in the Bible. We have names, and they, of course, are used in modern Hebrew. First of all, you take what you have. Family, brother, sister, father and mother, sons, brother-in-law, mother-in-law. Families were a basis of the Jewish society from the beginning. And they have names for everything, for every part of the family. So we don't need to invent anything. We have now the names for the family. Environment, the mountains, the river, the valley, everything they knew, they spoke about the earth. They told us a story. Genesis, the stars, the sun, everything was there. We didn't have to invent anything. Sometimes, many times, and this is intuitively, but also the Ben Yehuda vision, what to do with language. His recommendation was to take words from the Bible and give it a modern, a new meaning, which is connected, associated to the ancient meaning. And this is a very interesting example. In Ezekiel book, there is the vision of the chamber, the fire chamber. And he writes that there was a big light, and he wrote ke'en chashmal, like he used the word chashmal. Nobody knows what chashmal is. Chashmal, maybe it is big light, maybe something else. It's a word, and we don't have even a clue from other languages what it is. But it is there in the Bible 3 times, and that's it. So we could just say another word we don't understand. But no, modern Hebrew needs words. Now, what happened with chashmal? It was understood as amber by the Greek, because amber have a very special light. It's a very special material. And they called amber and put it in the Greek translation to the Bible to this chashmal, called it electron. Electron is a Greek word. Electron is amber. And in the 16th, 17th century, humanity, science found a new power, not very understood. But they saw that the amber, the electron, it has this power, has some electromagnetic power. So they took this Greek word, amber, electron, and called it by this gave the name of the whole phenomenon, electricity. That's the way it continued. Now the modern Hebrew founders say, we need to this power a word. Electricity comes from electron. Electron is chashmal. So we call it chashmal. And chashmal now in modern life, also in Israel, is of course a very, very important word. You can hear it dozens of times. תכבה את החשמל, puts the electricity on and off. חברת חשמל, the society of electricity, and how is the name who his profession is deal with חשמל, חשמלאי, and a man who is electrified, becoming something happening to him from electricity, הוא מתחשמל. So it became a word all from these three times it's in Ezekiel in this special story. So Chashmal was saved as an everyday word, an important one, through, we call it extending meaning of a word. And it's a very natural and important way how if you need to go, it's okay, but do it quietly, please. And so it is a way to how languages develop. And here you have example how a word in the Bible expand or enlarge its meaning. Another, but it was not enough, of course, to take words from the Bible. We still have only 8,000. So Ben Yehuda, in his big dictionary, he wrote a huge dictionary, continued after his death and until up to 17 volumes. And he was not a linguist, so and he made a great work. He suggested, he said, now I have to explain to those who don't know it, Semitic languages are based on the root system. Root system means that there are families, there are groups, there are roots of 3, 4, and even 5 consonants, which are not words, they are just consonants. If you want to make new words, or to understand how words are done, you will find it is in fixed patterns. And the system is based on root plus pattern. You take a root from the Bible, from the Talmud, most of them from the Bible. You take a pattern that is used in ancient Hebrew and connected it, and you have a new word. Now, most of the new renewed word in Hebrew are in this system, taking the old pattern and root and combine it together to a new word. Now here is one very interesting example. There is a root in the Bible, Zayin Mem Resh, Zemer. I cannot pronounce it because it's not a word. Zmr, which means in the Bible either to sing or to play instruments. It's connected with music. And King David was Ne'im Zmirot Adonai. Ne'im Zmirot, the one who is very good in singing and performing music. Uzi v'zimrat ya, my strength and the things I pray to God, etc. And here we say from Psalms, many Psalms sentences begin with Lamenatzeach beniginot mizmor leDavid, also David, for the one who is the winner in music. We sing a song for him. Mizmor is the same root. Menatzeach, by the way, is a winner. But because of this pattern, Lamenatzeach beniginot, we call a conductor in an orchestra Menatzeach. It's not that he's winning, but he is the main person who are leading the orchestra. And from Zayin Memresh, putting in a pattern that is ancient, we find it also in the Bible and in the Talmud a lot, he made a new word in 1893, Tizmoret. Tizmoret is a pattern, Tiktolet, Tifolet, plus Zayin Memresh. And it was, in the beginning, it was for a concert, and some years later, it was adapted to an orchestra. And until today, an orchestra is Tizmoret. It is a new word, but based on ancient two feet, the pattern and the root. Or, for example, we need new tools and technology, names for the technology that was not known in the Bible, and not even in most of the medieval time. For example, a new machine that flies in the air, beginning of the 20th century. And in the beginning, they found a word, the son of Ben Yehuda, Itamar, who was also a known linguist and very talented, said, let's call it Aviron. What does it mean, Aviron? Why Aviron? Avir is air in Hebrew. And it's similar, and not by chance, it is a Greek name. It's coming from Greek origin. Avir, air. In French, they call it avion. Yes, this is an airplane. Avion. Now, avir, avion, he combined it together, and we have the name Aviron. And that was the name of this airplane for 20 years, but it was not a good word, because how can we call the man who fly, the pilot? No name for him. So they call him Me'ofef, the flyer. In Hebrew slang, Me'ofef means like an astronaut, a man who is not in reality. It's a derogative. Me'ofef. And other names. So in 1928, sorry, little different. Chaim Nachman Bialik, the big poet who also invented many words, found they were all scholars, literate, they knew the Bible and the Talmud by heart almost, though they were secular, but they was very deeply rooted in the Jewish culture. So he said, there is a verb, a forgotten verb, in Hebrew, in the book of Job. One time in the Bible. Kenesher yatus alei ochel, like an eagle who is flying to his food, to grab his food. And he said, let's take this latus verb, which the root is tus, that's the root, and create for our airplane who is flying a new name, matos. And in of course, the pattern that we know, matos, makom, for example, is the exact pattern of makom. What is makom? A place. But makom is a word in the Bible, in the same pattern, from kum. Makom, kum, matos, tus. So it is so simple, but you need great mind to think about simple things, as you know. And from matos, and the pilot, it was no longer me'ofef, but tayas, and other words, many other words from the root, and the root, like chashmal, tus is a forgotten verb, saved by Bialik and became so important. And like everything, part of my activity, and we touch it a little, is slang. I wrote a large dictionary of slang, of the Israeli slang. And when in slang latus, if you want somebody to get rid of somebody, you want him to go quickly out, you say, tus mikan. So it's also part of slang. And new food we didn't know in the Bible. Many plants, many fruits. We have many fruits and plants in the Bible. We took them. Sometimes we didn't know exactly what this fruit means. Sometimes we do. But there are fruits, new fruits coming from Europe, America, you name it. One of them is this seducing fruit you see in the picture, which everybody loves, and the Israelis, the new Israelis ate it with passion. And how to call it? And there was a fight about 3 or 4 names to this fruit. One is a very bad name. He was Ben Yehuda, very talented in names, but he had some failures. I won't repeat it. One is close to tomato, tamah. Tamah means whole. This was nice. But then came a poet with a tricky name for English, Michael Pinas, and Pinas, well, that's a name in Hebrew, in a Jewish name. And he said, in France, how they call in French this fruit, they call it pomme d'amour. Pomme d'amour means the apple of love, because as you see, it's seducing, it's erotic, it's an erotic fruit. And it took a biblical root, Ayin Gimel Bet, Agav, which means to seduce, to woo. It is erotic and even not very liked by the conservatives in the Talmudic time. And some words from it, from this special root in modern Hebrew, are not so nice, like the word for syphilis, agevet. It's the same root. So you see, but he said agvania, pomme d'amour, it's an erotic fruit, let's call it erotic name. And he created this word agvania. What you see, Kashir Agavim Yefe Kol, is from the Song of Songs, and Agavim, which means wooing, seducing. It's the same idea. So, of course, you need to keep the meaning of the root. Roots have meanings. They are not arbitrary. So if you keep it, you can find more and more words for almost everything. This is a very interesting story. Agevet, syphilis, is in the pattern we call the diseases pattern. In the Bible, there are about 10 diseases in this pattern. Daleket, kadachat, which daleket is fever, or kadachat too, shachefet, tuberculosis, and some others. And the But there are so many new diseases. Medicine developed a lot. So there was a guy, Aaron Mazia. He was a medic, but he was very fond, very enthusiastic to help the Hebrew revival. So he wrote, in the beginning of the 20th century, a dictionary of medicine terms in Hebrew. Most of them he invented. 6,000 new terms, can you imagine? Only for medicine. He invented the whole medicine dictionary, which most of it is used until today. And he also gave many diseases names, some of them in this pattern. So if you want the disease that make us yellow, tzahov, called tzahevet. The disease that make us red, adom, ademet. But there is this disease that nobody understands, influenza, the flu. Influenza means the disease of influence. Why influence? The explanation I read is because as they didn't understand, as we don't understand today, why flu is so frequent, they thought it is because of the influence of the stars condition. So, but the name is influenza. It's connected, and there is a root in the Bible, Shin Pei Ayin, which is shefa, prosperity, leashpia, to influence. A later use of this same root, leashpia means to influence. So they say influenza, the disease of influence, shapa'at, the disease of hashpa'a. That's the way, it's the same root. Hashpa'a is influence. Shapa'at, you see, the same root, is the name of the disease. And that's what we call it until today. Everybody has shapa'at in the winter, and nothing helps. So this is the flu, and here, and also the biblical reference has this name, Shif'ah. Professions, new professions, modern professions. We must have names. So, you know, Ben Yehuda was a journalist. He published journals, and he published it, he explained it, because he wanted to make Hebrew, to spread the Hebrew ideas, the Hebrew new words, etc. But there is no name for a newspaper. There were some very complicated names that are not. Hebrew likes small words based on one root, one pattern, and not on compounds. Not like German, of course, who likes compounds. Everybody, they make compounds, 3, 4 words, become one long word, you forget the beginning when you come to the end. In Hebrew, it's very, very small. It happens to the German also with sentences. Until the sentence is finished, you forgot the beginning. And Hebrew likes short sentences. And this is one of the things that I like in Hebrew a lot, because you can, it's clear. But let's go to this. So he took this, you know, who says, there is a time, there is a very known song about it, there is a time for any purpose, time to, I don't remember now, it's Eglexias, how you pronounce it, Kohelet. I gave up with this name. Kohelet is much easier. And עת לכל זמן ועת לכל חפץ. See, look how beautiful it is. זמן and עת are same meanings, time. Zman is Aramaic Persian word. Et is a Semitic word, both in the Bible because there is Persian Aramaic influences on the Bible too. So he took the word et, which is more high level than Zman, and he created for the newspaper the word iton. Why iton? Because newspaper is connected with time. It's timely. How do we know it? How do we call it a newspaper in German? Zeitung. Zeitung from the word Zeit, Zman. So Zeitung became iton, and then he say, and who is working in the iton? Like who is working in Chashmal? The man who is working in the iton is itonai. And so we have this new profession, one of so many new professions, all based, many are based on the special pattern we have in the Talmud and the Bible for professions, which is another pattern, and also this I, Chashmalai, itonai, and many others. Now, the Academy of Language, in the big storm of inventing the new language, hundreds and hundreds of basic words were invented on the desk by committees, which is very unusual, of course. And Ben Yehuda was criticized. How can you invent a language on a desk? It has to come from life. He said, you are absolutely right, but we don't have time. We are working in a very special situation without time. We need these words now, so we have to invent them. So he and his friends, they invented many hundreds of words, but it continued. Now the main institution who invent new words is the Academy of Hebrew Language. I admit that I was the head of one of these committees that invented new words for the media, and I sit in the committees who invent words for everyday life. Some of them are very good, and some of them have very special tasks. They make so the public can laugh about them. Say, oh, what strange word! Nobody will use it, and it's part of the evolution of the language. Some words succeed, some not, but it continues, and thousands of words are created and continue to be created in the academy and in professions and in the newspapers and in the street, what we call slang. And this is one of a small, nice example. As I said, Hebrew doesn't like compounds, but still we have some, even in the Bible. And for example, when Ben Yehuda wants to find a word for bacteria, he make a small compound, chai, which means alive, dak, which means small. And he invented a new word, chaydak. Chaydak is a bacteria. And we use it until today, chaydakim. You know, the whole world ecology is now based on chaydakim. We know that now. It's not only diseases. In some years ago, when the issue of aliens came to our world, not only by Spielberg and E.T., but about aliens are coming to conquer us or other aliens. So we asked for new words in Hebrew. So it came from the public, but confirmed by the academy, the idea that alien is also a compound. Chai is alive. Zar is a stranger. Chayzar is an alien. So there is a new word, and we use it. And in slang, when we try to say about somebody that he's a weirdo, we say he is a chayzar. So it used also in a metaphorical way. So this is our alien guy. Now, what is very, very crucial in to understand Hebrew is that Hebrew is Hebrew history, dynamics, apparatus is built on two forces or two elements. The backbone is classical Hebrew, biblical, Talmudic, medieval, etc. But it was along the years history of Hebrew, there was a contact with other languages. Contact with languages is the life of language as a whole. English is proud, the pride of English is, as they say, you say, we take from everybody. We contact the French, we take words from French. Contact the German, we take from German, we take from Chinese, we take from everybody. That's why English is so growing and so flexible and so rich, of course. So keeping yourself close and not touching other languages is not such a good idea. As the French maybe think that nobody touch our French. Okay, everybody touch everybody, and everybody is influenced now by the global American, but in the past other languages were influential. Now Hebrew is not French. Hebrew is a small and quite a weak language with small vocabulary and small group of people who are speaking it. So all along the generation, there was contact with other languages that influenced Hebrew and enriched her. Until today, if we have about 60, 70,000 words now in Hebrew, or even 80, we use in it, and we see some example, thousands and thousands of words which are foreign words. In the Talmudic time, even before the biblical, but Talmudic, it's very, you can see it everywhere. There were two languages that influenced Hebrew a lot, Aramaic and Greek. Aramaic is Semitic, lingua franca of the area, and Greek, conquering language, language of the conquerors. So we can see now the sandal. How do you say sandal in Hebrew? Sandal. It's the same word. Why? Because Greek influenced Hebrew and also influenced Latin, Roman languages, English, all over. Same word. How do you say basis in Hebrew? Anybody knows? Basis. Basis, basis. Same word, written the same. Both came from, of course, from Greek. There are many, many other examples for this. And there are hundreds and hundreds of words coming from Greek, ancient Greek, to Hebrew, and are now part of, and a natural part of our Hebrew. Arab in the medieval time. And today, as I said, we use many foreign words that have no translation. The idea, the pure idea was everything will be in Hebrew. We will invent words for everything. We won't use foreign words. This idea was not fulfilled. Personally, I'm happy about it. because it keeps us part of the world. Some people think that it's awful. Well, there is dispute about it. But, for example, we don't have a word for sport. You can explain the sport is international, it's an international word, but it's a fact. Sport in Hebrew is sport, the same word exactly. We don't have a word for humor. And there is something you can say Israeli humor. We don't say humor. Most of these words we don't say we don't now pronounce it in the English way, but in the German or Russian way. We say humor. יש לו humor, אין לו humor. Or what is said about like the Polish way, hush humor. And so we don't have a word for tact. And this is not a surprise. Even if the word for politeness, nimus, we took from the Greek. We don't invent our own word for it. And on the other hand, sorry, I'm not the same joke like yesterday, but we exported to the world, to English, a very important word, chutzpah. This is our donation to the world culture, you can say. And there is also an idiom, Israeli chutzpah. Chutzpah Israelit, which means these are us. These are us. So we don't have a word for democracy. We say demokratia. We don't have a word for coalitia. We say coalition. We say coalitia. Why demokratia, coalitia? This is a Russian way. The Russian, because these words are from the beginning of the 20th century. It's not new. Now, this is very, very important and tricky way of contact between languages. Not only between Hebrew and the other languages, but between languages in general. It's called a loan translation. We don't use the what we call direct loan words directly from the other language, but we grab its meaning. How do we do it? There is a word, for example, in English, a star. Star is in the sky. How it is called in Hebrew? Kochav. From Genesis, Kochav. Now, in English, it developed the concept of a movie star. Or later, a star in politics, a star in science, a man who is above others. So in Hebrew, we take this meaning of star, and we say about these people, Kochav, he is a Kochav, he is the best in his team. This is a loan translation. Or this example, tnuah means movement. It's coming from the ancient sources. And it meant movement. You are moving from place to place. But in German and in English, I think German here influenced English, tnuah means also an organization, movement, Bewegung in German, the youth movement, the national movement, etc. So in Hebrew, we took the meaning of tnuah from German and English, and we extended the meaning of the word tnuah to an organization. So we have Tnuat Noar, youth movement, Tnuat Avoda, labor movement, Hatnua Tzionit, Zionist movement. So it's a very important word, and it's we can say all the organizations, the big ideological organization, Tnuah Kibbutzit, in Israel are called Tnuot movements by enlarging by a loan translation. We also translate And this is done in contact between languages, again, not only in Hebrew. Another interest of mine that I developed as a part of my expertise is idioms and phrases. I can say I published close to 20 books until today, most of them about language, but not all. But I think the one I'm most proud of is the Dictionary of Idioms and Phrases in Hebrew, including 18,000 idioms and phrases, which tell the Israeli who uses them when or where did it come from? What's the etymology of these idioms and phrases? Many of them, thousands of them, are coming from the Bible and from the Talmud and the Jewish sources. But most of them are translated from other languages. And after you translate, it becomes Hebrew. And there are many, many examples, thousands and thousands. Here is one of them, very simple. You can recognize it because it was directly translated to English, kindergarten. So it's a German word, compound, kinder, children, garten, garden. But you don't call it a garden of children garden, but kindergarten. So you took the German way. In Hebrew, we translate it. Kindergarten, gan yeladim. Garten, gan, kinder, yeladim. And every child in Israel is going to a gan yeladim. The same idea, translated from German. And this is one of thousands examples. So you see how this way of translating idioms is very creative in developing the new language, because language need idioms. It's not enough to have words. Idioms is a bricks of culture. As we have more and more idioms, the language is richer. Another way, important, not less important, is adaptation. What is adaptation? We take a foreign word, but we don't use it as is, but it also we don't translate it. We adapt it to Hebrew forms. We do it a lot. For example, popular is, of course, an English word. Popular, everybody knows what it is. In popularity, we don't use. What we say is populariyut. We take this popular and we put iyut, a suffix, a Hebrew suffix. Also, Hebrew suffix known from the Talmud and the Bible. This iyut or ut, we put it on a foreign word and we have a new word. Is it Hebrew or is it foreign? Pick your choice. It is combined, and that's how we enrich ourselves without translating. Or this way, which is much more creative and very, very, I say that it's coining new verbs. Because the Semitic system has special patterns for verbs. We have 7, what we call binyanim, call it buildings, how the verbal system is built. And we can make roots with any bunch of consonants we want, if it has some meaning. So from also the dawn of language, our ancestors took foreign words and make a Hebrew root out of them. To philosophize, which coming from, of course, Greek philosophy, became in medieval Hebrew le-falsef, le-itpalsef, also with the influence of Arabic. They took the philosoph, and put a new root out of it. In modern Hebrew, it's a flood of new verbs coming from foreign languages, and even from abbreviation, and everything become a root, and if it's a root, it's a new verb. For example, this one, torpedo, and you also, as I found in the Oxford Dictionary, you can make a verb out of it. To torpedo means not only the narrow meanings of the ballistic meaning, but also to avoid something to happen. It won't happen, I will torpedo it. In Hebrew, you say letarped. We took from torpedo tarpada and make a new root, and now we say letarped. And we, in Israeli, like very much to torpedo other people's. Sorry, I'm not a big patriot of the Israeli culture, but that's what we have. And letarped, or we have in politics, everybody letarped. You can say that Republicans try to letarped Obamacare. Okay, if you want an American, they do what they can. I'm not going to other comments about it, but it's an example. Politics is, the story of politics is how can I letarped the other party's initiative. That's what I'm here for. Letarped, everybody letarped, so, and in the end, nothing happens, as we know. Okay. Now, which languages influence Hebrew in the past? And I'm speaking now about modern Hebrew, not about Greek or Aramaic, as I don't begin with English, because English was not an influential language in the beginning of the 20th century, in the dawn of New Hebrew. It was the language of the colony, of the empire, but not the language of the global culture like today. What was the language or languages? Especially German and French. German was mostly influencing, we already saw this kindergarten, and Bewegung, so you see I mentioned German twice already. And here is a very nice example. How do you call a watch in Hebrew? Again, a new instrument. In German, it's called Uhr. Uhr means an hour and a watch. The same word. Now, in Hebrew, they took this idea of the watch is showing the hour, and in the beginning, the German Sha'ah. Sha'ah means an hour in the Bible. Sha'ah. But they didn't want to. I mentioned before, Yechiel Michal Pines invented the word sha'on. What it takes a sha'ah and put on. The suffix on is very frequent in Hebrew. We use it for various reasons. Some are diminuting, but also tools. Sha'ah, sha'on. So it is like Iton, Zeitung. So you see, German is everywhere. We don't know it because it was adopted to Israel by translation. So Arabic, wow, Arabic, Palestinian Arabic. Now, Arabic is a sister of Hebrew. Ben Yehuda wanted to develop the Israeli language, the Hebrew language, the modern, on Arabic much more than he was allowed because of ideological reasons. But still, there is a big influence, but where is Arabic very strong? In slang. And slang is not a bastard of the family of the language as something despised. Slang is important because it's part of our informal language, the language we use if we want to contact with friends, to give our feelings an informal way of expressions. So the Arabic, Palestinian Arabic, is the queen of Israeli slang. The most important words in Hebrew are Arabic. And I always say that if the relationship between Jews and Arabs in Israel were like the relationship between Hebrew and Arabic, peace was here and harmony was in the area long time ago. But you know, it doesn't happen. Arabic and Arabic, we use a lot of Arabic in our slang. This is a very nice example. In the D1 in Arabic is a very fancy temple. And also, metaphorically, a name for books of poetry in an Arabic way, which is very fancy and not so poetically good, but praise the leaders, etc. And the one in this sense became a plural, dawawin. Now dawawin is already slang in English, in Arabic, means speaking nice words without any context. Nothing is after it. It's a derogative word. Dawawin in Hebrew was shortened to dawin, and dawin is one of the most important words in Israeli slang. Somebody tells you about things that happened, and you say dawin, nothing after it. So you see one example of thousands of words from Arabic in Israeli slang, and it's all, you know, tasting. Yiddish, as I already hinted, Yiddish was forbidden in Israel in the public arena, but it was in every house. Parents spoke Yiddish between themselves. So there was a tense, the tense brought the phenomena that many Yiddish words were sneaking into Hebrew in daily talk and become part or main part of the Israeli slang until today. There is here one interesting idea or example. You see here a cat. Kuter is a male cat in Yiddish. And the idea is that a male cat, when he wants his female, he is whining. Wow, wow, wow. So it, metaphorically, it became the name of the complainer, the one who have complaints all the time. Eze kuteru. It's a very strong, kuter, it is a very strong word in Hebrew slang, coming from Yiddish, and it's, and if you know the Israeli ethos, is the ethos of Ani lo friar. Who knows this? Friar means a sucker. Nobody can fool me. We are strong. Nobody can fool us. אנחנו לא פריירים. Friar is, of course, a Yiddish word for a sucker. And this is only two examples of so many. Well, Ladino also influenced Hebrew a lot. Here is a word, it's not slang. Chanukiah, the Hanukkah lamp, it sounds Hebrew, and it is Hebrew, but it was created in the Ladino culture already in the 18th century, And in the 20th century, it's interesting that who brought it to the Israeli arena was Chemda Ben Yehuda, the wife of Ben Yehuda, who wrote the first Hebrew gossip column. She was writing a gossip column. What is happening in Jerusalem, in the, in the everyday life of Jerusalem, in the newspaper of her husband. And someday she wrote a story that she went to some family, a Sephardic family who spoke Ladino, and she saw a big, and they call it Chanukiah. So now we call it Chanukiah, and this is also one example of many. Russian, a lot, called dog chill, Russian sobachi cholod. Here you have a long translation, a phrase that was translated. And what does it mean? Well, in Israel, when you are less than 15 Celsius degrees, everybody's complaining that it's so cold, you don't remember such a chill. Well, we have also snow sometimes in Jerusalem, but I'm from Tel Aviv. In Tel Aviv, we don't know what's, the last snow I saw as a child was when I was 4 years old, and it was not yesterday. Now, but why cold chill, dog chills? What's connection between dogs and chill and coldness? The connection is that it is so cold, meaning 20 down zero, like in Russia, that even the dogs suffer from the chill, and you have to put them in the house. That's the meaning, and that's what he called Sobati Cholod, and of course, translated to Hebrew. British English influences Hebrew, but as a kind of, we are going to finish, as a kind of revenge, we corrupt British words. Ginger became gingy, and there are many. And of course, American English, global English now is very, very influential, and everything that we want to say that it's good, it's awesome, we say cool. And when you, and everybody is looking for his look, הלוק שלך נראה כזה, איזה לוק יש לך, תדאגי ללוק שלך, look become a Hebrew word, which means the same as, and we don't have time to see how we translate from English. Sometimes it sounds not so good in Hebrew. לקחת שיעור, we want, after the American, we take everything. We take a lesson, we take shower, we make friends, take and make are everywhere, and this is our, and of course, branding in Israel, you almost, it's very rare you brand new products with Hebrew names. If it's English, it means it's good, it's part of the world. So yes and hot are cable TV and satellite TV. That's the name. Hot and yes. And you see Bigud. Bigud means clothing in Hebrew, but it's be good, two English words. So, and it's written even in bilingual way. Bigud, it's kind of very creative mixture. And of course, a lot of new verbs. So what's written here in Hebrew is Yalla Bait Ra'ot. Yalla Bait Ra'ot is the way when we separate, when we say, when everybody goes to his way, we say Yalla Bait Ra'ot. What does this strange thing mean? Yalla is Arabic, and you can hear Allah, yes? God. Oh God. Yalla means oh God. Bye is a shortening of goodbye, which, as you might know, or you may know, is a shortening of God be with you from the past. So there is God here twice in this Yalla Bye Traot. Traot is see you but it's coming from German. Auf Wiedersehen. We see each other again. Lehitraot, shortening, like bye shortened. Traot is shortening. And Yalla Bye Traot is a trilingual phrase with 3 languages, and it's only in Israel, you know. So, well, that's a very short run over this fabulous and funny sometimes language. And if you want to ask a question, maybe we have some minutes for this. If not, have a good evening. יש שאלה. אוקיי, be polite and stay. בבקשה. Yes. Are you asked? Not so easily, because of 2 reasons. First, the vocabulary, especially of the Talmud, is much harder. While the vocabulary of the Bible, most of it, as I hinted, is known to every Israeli. What is hard is not vocabulary. It's syntax, especially syntax. The syntax of the Bible is very hard and based on different patterns of the modern Hebrew syntax. And it's closer to the Mishnah syntax, modern Hebrew, but still it is not the same. So that makes it hard to understand. But as I said, not the word. So if you skip the syntax obstacle, you can read it, and it's definitely one language. It's one language with some variant. It's not like ancient Greek and modern Greek, which are separated languages. Okay, good night. Okay.
Let me get this from you so you don't, you don't need to take that.
No, I don't want to.